you, and I have a special guest on with us this Sunday, Mr. Collie Brown, and we're going to be discussing can you overcome the odds in business? Can you experience success and overcome the odds in business? Shout out to everybody in the chat room. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe as you come into the chat. Also, too, couple of announcements before we get started. Tours, March 20th through the 26th. We will be in Nigeria. It's not too late if you want to come. March 20th through the 26th. August 13th through the 19th, we will be back in Nigeria for the Oshun Festival. So if you'd like to join us, go to dynastymir.com, send me a message. Again, go to dynastymir.com, send me a message. Then we'll have another tour in Nigeria that has not been scheduled yet, but it will be in November. That will be for our festival in my kingdom of Otoruo. We will be having our festivals. I don't know the dates yet, but I will find out soon. And in December 4th through the 12th, we will. I am collaborating with Blacksit, with Juliet with Blacksit, and we will be doing a tour to Sierra Leone. So again, I know that's a lot, but so send me an email or just go to dynastymir.com. Let's keep it simple. Go to dynastymir.com and leave a message. Send me your number. I will call you with all the details. So Natasha, you got to join us. It sounds amazing. So you need to come and join us. Come hop on. So again, dynastymir.com, everybody. Mr. Brown, you're a successful guy. I know you are. You have success just written all over you. And so let's get into your story. We haven't gotten into your story. Now you mentioned overcoming the odds. Like you're from Jamaica. Am I correct?
Correct.
So kind of break down, just walk us through Jamaican kid in Kingston somewhere. I don't know.
Not Kingston. I know most people say they're from Kingston, but that's almost everybody will say they're either from Kingston, they're from Lagos, or they're from Accra or someplace, but they'll never say Kumasi or some of the smaller towns.
Okay.
But yes.
Montego Bay.
I know Montego Bay very well, but I'm actually from the middle of the island, dead smack in the middle of the island.
Okay.
And so I'm a country boy, so to speak. But and I'm proud to say that because we didn't miss anything growing up in the countryside. So background. So I came to the United States at the age of 22.
Okay.
And I came actually to become a commercial pilot.
Okay.
So for those of you who don't know, I'm actually a pilot. I have a private pilot's license, and I had that in Jamaica. Some people are going to say, well, if you had that in Jamaica, you must have been, pretty well off or whatever it is. But that's not it, actually. Give me 1 second. So when I was a young kid, teenager, actually very, very young, less than teenager, there used to be dentists. So we live on this hill, right? If you know anything about Jamaica, the middle of the country is fairly high. It's like about 2,000-3,000 feet above sea level. And then it drops off to all the coasts. So if you go to the south or the north coast, Ocho Rios, Montego Bay, those places, they're on the coast and it's fairly flat. Anyway, one of my first inspiration was from a crop duster. If you don't know what a crop duster is, it's actually an airplane that flies and sprays crops. Yeah, and say again?
It sprays pesticides too, does it?
Correct. That's exactly what it does. Pesticides and maybe sometimes fertilizers as well, but mostly it's pesticides or herbicides or whatever you want to call it. But they basically spray that. So as a little kid, I used to, behind my house, there was a nice slope. So as a little kid, I used to go behind the house and I would watch the crop duster fly by. And I was so inspired by this crop duster because here's this guy in this plane, defying gravity. And if you know anything about crop duster, they weave in and out and they follow the contours of the ground, so that because they want to stay as close as possible to the ground, so that the whatever they're spraying stays on the ground and doesn't get blown away. So at the age of 10, 9, 10-ish, I looked at that and I said, oh, that's an awesome thing to do. I'd like to be able to fly an airplane. So by the time I was a teenager, I actually started to take the steps. I started to read up on what it takes to become a pilot. By when I got to the age of 18, I actually became a pilot. Yeah, and as a matter of fact, right next to me here is my pilot's certificate sitting up on the wall.
Now, can you fly like commercial airliners or like
No,
what can you?
no. So for that, you need a commercial pilot license and what you call it, airline transport rating. So basically, there's private pilots, then there's commercial, and then from that point on, you have what's called ratings. So as you go above commercial, everything beyond that is basically ratings. So if you want to fly with multiple engines, you call it multi-engine rating. If you want to fly an airline, you have to pass what's called an airline transport test that the FAA has. But anyway, long story short, I came to the United States, age 22, and I got into technology. Mm-hmm. And I came roughly around the same time that Reagan fired those controllers, those air traffic controllers. And if you remember around that time, that's when deregulation started. Long story short is I ended up going into technology and worked as a programmer, went to college, worked as a programmer, and worked my way up through corporate America. I'm married, going on almost 30 years. So I've been, I'm a long-termer in terms of that. I have one daughter, and she's in the business, the Argon company, and she's also an author. And I have a couple of her books here. I'll probably just show you what they look like because it's part of the inspiration story. This whole video is about me narrating from my perspective, what I've learned over the years from people, from my parents, family, friends, what I've learned just from experience dealing with, running a company and climbing through corporate America. There are some things that I learned very early on that helped me to become, to be where I am today. So, I mean, from a background perspective, I think you pretty much have an idea of who I am now at this point. So I do like airplanes. It's one of my passions. And, I have my eyes set on one of them one day that I will be able to go buy and hopefully fly myself rather than hiring somebody to do it for me. So that's my background. That's my background. So yes, I am from Jamaica. And, interesting, Dynast, is a couple, what was it, probably about a week ago or maybe a little less, you had a conversation on with talking about the immigrant and how they perceive African Americans.
Yeah, with Lou Major. Yeah,
exactly. So I want to talk about that a little bit because we need to set some framework for a conversation. If we don't understand some basics, then we'll talk past each other. People will not, they'll misunderstand and they will say, people will come up with excuses and stuff. So let's set some basics, right? The first one is, in that conversation, it was a question of, people who were born here were saying people from the outside are looking down on them, and the people from the outside were saying the people here aren't doing whatever they need to do. And the truth is, I watched the conversation and I was shaking my head because people were talking past each other and nobody was literally talking to each other. And what I hope people take away from this is, one, how do you succeed in business? But before you do that, there's some basic things that we all have to agree on. So the immigrant story. The first thing I'm going to say is I'm an immigrant. So I can speak to it from the immigrant perspective. But I have family members, in-laws who are American, who were born here. And, and so I have that experience dealing with them. I'm going to do it by telling a simple little story. So imagine, Dynast, that there's these 10 folk who live on a street, and they decide they want to go down to a school down the road because they hear that school is an awesome school. It's much better than the school they have. And so they set out to go to that school. On the way to that school, they were passing this home, and outran a lion, and the lion chased them and bit one of them. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Bear with me a second. I'm going somewhere with this.
I'm here.
So the next day, they went back down there, and the lion chased them again. And this goes on for a week. At the end of the week, they said, you know what? Look, I don't care what school is down there. I'm not going to go to that school because the reality is there's a lion along the way.
Right.
So here comes now an immigrant who lives in the same neighborhood, right?
Uh-huh.
And this immigrant comes and he's talking to those 10 people, and he says to them, hey, you know, I'm going to go to that school down there. I'm going to send my kid to that school down there. So I'm going to go with my kid to that school. And the people said, no, you can't do that, because if you do, a lion is going to chase you down there and it's going to eat you up, so you're not going to be able to make it. Not knowing any better, the immigrant decides they're going to walk down that street. Now, it turns out that the last person that the lion bit, the lion broke the teeth, the tooth. And you know, if a lion breaks their molar, their not molar, their what do you call it? Canine, right? They're pretty much done for. They're pretty much going to be starving to death because they need that to rip, meat and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay. So the immigrant walks down there and he decides, you know what? Let me walk through there. And he walks past and there's no lion to chase him.
Uh-huh.
And then he goes to the school and he's like, wow, this is an awesome school. So he comes back and he says to the people there, hey, listen, you guys are idiots, because you see, you said I couldn't go down there and I couldn't go to the school because a lion's going to eat me.
Right.
And I did, and the lion didn't eat me. That's very similar to the story of immigrants and African Americans. The truth is that the reason the immigrant could go to that school down there and not be eaten was because the last person to be bitten happened to be that African American kid, right, who was trying to go to school. So the lion came and the lion bit him, but because the lion had bitten so many people, after a while the canine started to get loose, and then eventually it broke on that last person. So who is right and who is wrong? Well, technically neither, but it would be silly of the immigrant to say to the local person.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, this is true in any country. It's not just the United States. This is true in any country. Whenever there's an immigrant situation and natives, that is right, true across the board.
True.
Okay. It is silly for the immigrant to say, hey, you had the opportunity to go to school all the time and you never took advantage of it, because they didn't have the experience of being bitten. It's also silly of the person being bitten who now sees the immigrant walking across the thing and saying, I'm still scared.
Right.
You see what I'm getting at?
Right.
In other words, when you get to a place, the foundation, there's usually a foundation there, and you didn't create the foundation, but you can benefit from the foundation the same way I came here. So in other words, I benefited significantly from the United States, but I have never been to a lunch counter where somebody refused to sell me something. I've never been to a lunch counter, or a dog chased me, or have had to do any of those things, but I'm a beneficiary of that. And I want to put this out there because I want to put to rest this conversation where people are talking past each other. The fact of the matter is that both groups have a point, and both groups need to learn from each other. Okay? So the other thing I'm going to say, and then we'll get to the actual being successful. The next thing I'm going to say is, Dynast, imagine for a second you heard of a country called Ambroton, Ambroton, and you hear there's no such country. I'm making it up. So imagine you hear of that country and you hear, listen, man, all you got to do is get there, and when you get there, the amount of money you
Kyle, let me stop you right there. So, like when I'm in Africa, like America, well, okay. So when I'm in America, you walk around, you'll see money on the street. Like you'll find change on the street, like coins, pennies. You know, sometimes
Quarters.
you might look up and find $1. Shit, I almost found $100 a
Hmm.
bill on the street in America. You don't find money on the streets anywhere in Africa at all. No
Period.
coin, no nothing. And so I guess because people when they come here, they'll find change, small change on the streets. They would go and tell their friends back home, like literally, there is money on the streets in America, and they will take that over exaggerated as if like there is a ton, just you can just get rich just walking around in America. And so that's what my immigrant friends used to tell me. Like
That's correct.
people would tell like there's literally money on the streets in America. That's
Absolutely.
in like context where it's just like okay, you might find a quarter here, you might find a dime or penny here. Yeah,
Well, you know, the old saying goes, right? So the rat goes back to his country. You know, little mouse goes back to his country, and he says to his friend, "Hey, listen, there are no cats in America, and the streets are paved with cheese. There's no cats in America, and the streets are paved with cheese." Similar thing, because you know, but the you're absolutely right though, because you know, so when so you hear of that country called Umberton, and you hear that all you have to do is get there. Somebody tells you this. You don't know this for sure, but somebody tells you this, or you watch it on TV or something like that, and the picture painted is that if you just manage to get there, it's up to how much money you can pick up off the ground. In other words, you can get rich, and the amount how rich you get is by how fast you can pick up money and stick it into some container that you can keep. Right? That's the mindset. Now, imagine you risk your life to come to that place. Okay?
right.
The very first thing I'm going to say is the people who risk their life to come here, or the people who choose to come here as immigrants, are the exception in their countries, or from wherever they're from. They're not the normal.
Expand on that, like expand.
So when you choose to go to a foreign place where you've never been, you have no connection, there's nobody there for you, you're the first one in the family going there. You're a pioneer, my friend. You are an explorer.
Okay.
Because you don't know what you're going to meet on the other side. So, and all you have to do is look at a typical immigrant family. It's usually half and half, where some decide they're not going to go to this place because they don't want to start over from the scratch, or they don't know what to expect, but they know what's at home. So the people who come here, whether they risk their life, in fact, the people who risk their life, those people, when you risk your life for something, you are passionate. When you're willing to die for something, you are in it for the better, the worst. You're going to fight like hell to make sure that you succeed.
Right.
So when you see so if you take an Indian, for example, or a Jamaican, the typical Jamaican you see here is not the same. You know, if you are unambitious, you're not going to take the risk to come here. You'll stay where you are in your country with your unambitious self.
Okay.
So the people you see here, when you see an immigrant group, and I'm not talking about refugees, I'm talking about people who pack up, who come here to succeed. Those people are motivated. It's like if they are at the top in terms of motivation in their society, they're in the very top 5% of motivated people.
Right.
So if you start to compare yourself, the typical American, white, black, blue, or green, when you start to compare yourself to somebody like that, you have to compare the ambitious American with the ambitious Jamaican, the ambitious Nigerian, the ambitious Haitian, the ambitious immigrant, period. Because it's a self-selected group. And so the people who come here tend to be very motivated. And when they come here, if somebody, take a Mexican, a typical Mexican immigrant who come the hard way. Not the ones, because they're affluent Mexicans, okay? I'm talking about the ones who come the hard way, who come across the desert and whatever else. After sacrificing so much, when they come to the United States and somebody says, I want you to go work for me, and I'm going to pay you minimum wage, and I need you to get up 4 o'clock in the morning, and you work until 10 o'clock at night. You know what? They look at that job and say, I'll do it. Because in comparison to where they're coming from and their motivation. And the other thing I'm going to say is they will do that job, but they're not going to do it forever. because they have ambition. They want to go someplace,
Right.
but they're willing to do what it takes. And the natives, no matter which country, United States, United Kingdom, whatever race, those people aren't willing because you're more comfortable. You know, you can't say to the typical American worker, hey, I want you to come work for me for less than minimum wage. They're just not going to do it because why should they? Right? So I wanted to kind of like put that out there so people understand. And they, you know, that people who leave where they are, whether it's today or they did it back in the days when they traveled on ships, right? When in the old days when people traveled on ships and you left your country, you're gone for good. They were not going back. It was a one-way trip to the unknown. And
Right.
anyone who is willing to risk that much is a motivated person. So when they come to a new land, two things happen. One, they know they have to start over. But the second thing is because they don't know anything about the land, they don't know anything, they have not much experience about it, they are willing to try new things and explore. And remember I said earlier that the immigrant came along and decided he's going to walk on the street and go to the school and guess what? There were no lions to bite him. That's what happens when an immigrant comes along. They don't know, you know, the racial stuff. They don't know any of that stuff, or at least they know very little of it. Right. Or at least at a minimum, it has very little bearing on them because they are comparing that to the nightmare they're leaving behind. Now, that's not every single immigrant because I certainly wouldn't put myself in that category. But what I'm saying is, you know, I have family members who are still in Jamaica who are successful in Jamaica, but they wouldn't come here because they don't want to start over. I'm a pioneer. I'll try something new. So it's a self-selecting group. So please, the comparison when you start to compare immigrants to African Americans, it's an invalid comparison. You have to compare immigrants to ambitious African Americans, okay? Because that's an equal, because you need to compare people who, you know, from the top strata of society in terms of ambition, in terms of goals, in terms of dreams. Yeah. So that's I wanted to kind of put that out there so that people understand, so they don't talk past each other, okay? Because that conversation has been going on too long and it's not helping anybody. All right, so to get into the meat of the matter, can you?
I know what inspired this conversation, I guess, was, so I was going through a list of the top Black billionaires in America.
Right.
And they were either all entertainment or technology. So correct. Robert Smith, and you named the other fellow.
His name is David, I forgot his last name. Okay. But he owns he is a senior partner in ITN. It's a services company. He's from Missouri. Actually, he was born in Missouri.
And that was very interesting.
Taylor Williams, right?
It's like entertainment or
one second. Let me get the guy's name because
yeah. But it was entertainment, and then it was technology, and I thought that was because I mean we're not really taught. I mean, there's a new IT movement amongst the Black community here in America, but you know, we're not really we're consumers of technology for the most part, like you mentioned in that video. You know, not really creating it or owning it, not owning it. We consume it. So when I saw that, I was like, I need to, you know, reach out to Collie about this. Mr. Collie, it really caught my attention. Either all entertainment, you know, Michael Jordan, Oprah Winfrey, Bob, former BET owner. I don't know if he's still a billionaire. Robert Johnson.
Depending on who you ask, he may or may not be. I don't think he's a billionaire.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I don't think he's a billionaire anymore.
No, he's not. Definitely not a billionaire. This gentleman's name. Let me just get his name real quick here. I'll tell you.
Shout out to Theodore.
David Stewart. His name is David Stewart. David Stewart. So yeah. So David Stewart. Here's the thing. You're absolutely right, because when you mentioned the I said, oh, there was only two that I know of in the tech space. Right. The reason is that you're not going to find a lot in the tech space because, as a general rule, we African Americans generally don't. There isn't a connection between the monetary side of technology, in other words, the business side of technology, and technology. And anything, if you do the odds, everything is about odds, right? If you have a million people trying something, a certain percentage is going to succeed. If even 1% succeed, that's a lot of people. Okay? So because there are very few people trying this, because they're not they're kind of shut out of it in a way, not directly, but sort of indirectly. Before we talk about that, let me set a few quick things in terms of what you're going to need to succeed in business, whether you're in technology, music, whatever else.
Go ahead.
There are a couple of things, and then we'll actually go into it.
I need to take notes. So I need to take notes. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm ready. Go ahead.
So, question for the audience: what is the most important thing that you must have if you intend to succeed? What is the most important thing?
I would say the drive. I would say the drive. Just to
drive. Okay. What is the audience saying out there? What are people saying out there?
Let's see here, guys. What is the most important, I guess, attribute that you have to have in order to be a successful business person? In the chat room. EK Inu, thank you for the super chat, brother. I'm not sure if I got your email. Did you get my email regarding First Cootie? I'm not sure. Let me email me again, EK, or just tell me which email you sent it to. Focus. Somebody says focus.
Focus. Okay. All right. So in the interest of
time, I would say the product.
The product. Okay. Actually, you were actually right. So and it comes by a number of different names. Mm-hmm. So you could call it ambition. Mm-hmm. You could call it drive. Uh-huh. You could call it fight. You have to fight.
Right.
Actually, and it is the biggest and most important thing that you need. And funny enough, to start a business and to run a business and to become successful in a business, what percentage would that be? What percentage would ambition, drive, and stuff? What percentage of success? If you were to quantify success and the ingredients that make success, what percentage of that would be ambition, drive, and so forth?
I would. Okay, well, I would put ambition and drive all in the same category.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would say 90%. I would say 85%.
Okay. What does the audience say?
Audience, what do you say? I would say 85 to 90%.
If that's true, right?
Right.
If that's true, then what you're basically saying is you have 85% of what you need to become successful in business.
Yeah.
Right? It would stand to reason.
If you have the ambition and the drive, I think everything else will fall into place.
So
because you have the product, but you don't have the ambition and drive, it's a waste of time.
So the people who are successful in life are successful before they have a product.
Right.
It's a general rule. People who are successful because they have a successful or a winning mindset. That's the most important piece. And you're actually, give or take, 85% is good. I had 80% for that, so that's good.
Right.
What I'm basically saying is that 80% of what determines whether you're successful or not is what you call ambition, drive, or stick-to-itiveness. You can pile all of those adjectives in that, but that is a crazy number to think about it, because if 80% of what you need comes from within and it's not outside, it's a within thing,
right,
then basically no one has the excuse that somebody stopped him by removing 80% of what they need. That's the reality of the situation. Okay. One of the things, if we go back to the scenario with the lion and the immigrant who came along and went to the school, there's a reason why young people try new things because they're fearless. They haven't been jaded by life to say, hey, I've tried this, it doesn't work 6 or 7 times. The same story, parallel wise, could be young and old. You could swap out the native person and the immigrant to young and old. Young being the immigrant and native being the old person. When you don't know what the risks are, you will more likely take the risk.
Okay.
If I say to a father of 3 or a mother of 2, quit your job and that dream you had of starting a company, go do that, they would look at me like I'm mad.
Right.
Because they don't have what it takes. Now, it's something you can learn. It's not that you can't learn it. You can learn it. But the fact is that is the biggest determinator. It has nothing to do. The biggest determinator, 80% of your success comes from within, which means that lack of money, lack of knowledge about the thing you want to do, people fighting against you, you're in the wrong country. You remember the interview you had with the doctor, the doctor friend that went to, she's from Cameroon?
Yeah. Miss Coleman.
Right. Somebody called in and he asked her, would you be successful if you were still in Cameroon? Remember that question?
I remember that. Mufasa asked.
Mufasa.
Yeah.
You remember her answer?
She said yes.
And her full answer was yes. And he says, how come? Because he has spoken to people and her answer was a very good answer. She said, I was very young, I went and I did the SAT outside of my parents' knowledge. Remember she said that?
Right.
She also said, I was going to go to medical school no matter what. If I didn't go to medical school in Cameroon, I was going to go into it in Ivory Coast or Sierra Leone or Italy. Remember all those things that she talked about?
Right.
That's a winning mindset. That right there. And she was 16. But that mindset that I am going to succeed, that determinant would mean that she would succeed whether she was in Cameroon still or she was in or she's in the United States. Okay? That is explaining that 80%. And that is something you get from an early age, or if you don't get it from an early age, you can learn it. Okay? And we'll talk about how you learn it. But the point is, it is one of the biggest factor, because let me tell you why I say it's a big factor. Earlier, we go back to the same example. I'm going to use the example over and over and over because there's a lot to learn from that example. Again, I said you could swap out African Americans in the example with the immigrant, and you could swap it out to old people and young people, the young people being the immigrant, right?
Right.
At some point, they stopped going down to the school, trying to go to the school because they were being bitten every single time. But unknown to them that the last one that was bitten, that last one damaged the lion to a point where the lion can no longer attack them. But because they have been bitten so many times, they said, I'm not going down there anymore. And they tell their kids, don't go down there anymore. And it's a reasonable mindset. Think about it. It's a reasonable thing. Who wants to see their kid go down there and get bitten by a lion? No one. But when you have a drive, an internal drive, that I am going to do this, either I'm dead or I'm going to keep going. In other words, as long as there's life in me, there's breath in me, I'm going to be going. If you had that mindset, then even after the last one that was bitten, you're still going down there and try it the next day. Because your mindset says, this is what I have to do or kill me now, but I'm going to be doing this. So, because what happens in life is to be successful in anything and to be successful in business, you're going to face so many giant obstacles. So many lions along the way. You're going to face lions from family members, from the system, from the, money, lack of money in the form of lions. You're going to face so many bloody lions along the way. You're going to get bitten so often so often that if you are not willing to say it's this or nothing, then you're going to get bitten one too many times and you're going to give up. And that is the story of so many people. Okay? The graveyard is the richest place on the face of the earth because that's where dreams go to die.
Les Brown.
That's absolutely true. It is the richest place because people are not willing to fight the fight. You know, I sit here and I'm talking to you having been scarred so many times. People, folks, if I tell you some of the nightmares I've gone through, you would say, man, you're crazy. Mm-hmm. You would absolutely think I'm nuts. But the point is, successful people, when they get to the very top, and I'm just beginning my journey, but when they get to the top, they never talk about the billions they make. They always talk about the journey because it's escape from death, you know, the trap. You know, we're David. So the second black billionaire, the one when I was telling you that he's worth about $3 billion.
David Stewart, right? David Stewart. They repossessed his car, and he had an attaché in the trunk with business plans in there, and he just barely managed to. He just barely managed to retrieve his attaché case. In other words, he barely escaped with his life. Repeat that one more time. What you said about.
So when he was starting out, he wasn't going. He was going nowhere.
Right.
His business was failing. They repossessed his car. On the day they repossessed his car, he had a attaché in the trunk, and in the attaché were with business notes on the business. And when the truck came to pick up the car, he had to fight like hell for them to open the trunk to take his thing out so he could keep that. What I'm saying to you is, you know, the plans in there were the plans he used to build a company, right? That's what we call near-death experiences. So when I talked about the lion is in the form of so many things.
Right.
And that fight that you have to have, that's why I'm saying it's 80% of what you need. 80% of what you need. Because if you do not have that 80%, I don't care where you're from or who are your parents, you know, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to be successful. And by the way, Dynast, most people who are successful, it's very rare that their kids are as successful as them.
I agree.
Okay, it's very rare because
there's really no need to be. They don't have to be because everything's given to them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, where's the near-death experience? Where is the potential where you know you have a payroll to meet and you don't know where the money's coming from?
I would say Donald Trump is probably more successful than his father.
No.
Don't think so.
In terms of dollars, Donald Trump, if he invested his money in the stock market, let's say he invested his money in the S&P 500, he would be worth today easily about $15 billion. He was worth nowhere near to $15 billion.
Right.
Depending on who you speak to, he's worth $3 billion. Some people say he's worth less, but the maximum I've ever seen is $3 billion. No matter what he tells you, the point is that he would have been.
That's $3 billion more than me.
That's true, but when somebody gives you $400 million to start off, $430 million to start off, that ain't a bad thing, man. That ain't a bad thing. You know, like I said, if you took the $430 million and put it in the stock market, you would have been worth $15 billion today. So clearly underperformed the stock market. Right. So I don't know how good a track record that is. That's for somebody else. So that's for another conversation. Mm-hmm. But those are the facts. I just state the facts. I'm not making a point one way or the other. I'm just stating the facts. Okay. Mm-hmm. So 80% of you being successful is that fight. Because as I said, as a business person myself, and I'm not out of the woods. No businessman will ever tell you, or business person will ever tell you that they're out of the woods. Okay? It took a hell of a lot of scars to get here. And there were times when I can speak for myself, but I'm sure anybody who's ever started in a business and had to make payroll or anything like that will have some version of this. Right. There were times when you're looking at the account and you're looking at the checks and the two don't match in terms of you know, what needs to go, right? Where you can't pay, everybody else gets paid, but you don't get paid. You know, that kind of a story. The point is that it's a fight. It truly is a fight. It's a fight that I'm doing right now. We're just trying to build out the company, right? It's a hell of a fight, right? And you can go check us out at argon.com, arghon.com. But it's a hell of a fight. So to be successful in business, the very first thing you have to have, and it's 80%, I'm going to say it's 80% of what you need to succeed, is that fight. Because it's what's going to sustain you when nothing else is there. Okay? The second thing you're going to need, the other 20%, you can break this up. No. One, you have to be willing to learn from others.
Okay.
Okay. The knowledge you have is not going to be sufficient on its own. You're going to need other people. So you're going to have to be willing to learn from other people. Now, let me throw something in here real quick, because it's something that I hear people throw around all the time. What is the word envy? I'm going to address the word envy. What is jealousy and envy? Dynast, if you are a billionaire,
okay,
and you started a business and you worked your way up from scratch to where you are now, and I look at you and say, damn, if Dynast can do this, I can do this.
Right.
Is that envy, or is that being inspired?
Being inspired.
Being inspired. Wanting the same $3 billion you have or even more is not envy. That's being inspired. If I want to have it and you don't, that's envy.
Right.
Okay, so let me just put that out there, guys. So just so you have in your head. So if you are inspired by somebody, you don't think, am I jealous of them? Or that's not what that is. That is saying you understand. Because when you see success, some people doing successful things, you should be inspired. You should be awed by them.
Right.
Okay. What Tyler Perry did is no ordinary feat.
Not.
Okay. Listen to his story. He tells you about some nightmares. Tyler Perry was successful even though he was in his car when he was starting out. Because success, he had 80% of, yet here's the thing, he had 80% of what he needed and he knew he had the 8%.
Right.
Okay. That's the thing. He knew he had the 80%. Okay. If you don't know you have it, then you better find out if you have it and then know that you have it so that when you go out, you'll fight for it. Your tendency is to want to go out and start something on your own. Okay. So that's the other. So let's go into the 20%. So the 20%, one of this is vision.
Uh-huh.
People who are successful in business have vision. What is vision? I'm going to use a biblical expression because I know lots of people here grew up in the church and they probably have a version of it.
Go ahead.
It says where there's no vision, the people perish.
Right.
Who's the people? Who's the people?
That could be your family. That could be
you, me, everybody.
Right.
Us. It's us. It's us. It's us, the individual. The people that it's referencing. It's us. So where there's no vision, when we don't have any vision, we will perish. Now, what's this word perish? Because again, that word perish comes from a Hebrew word. You know, the Bible is written in Hebrew or Aramaic, depending on what versions you're using and what testaments, right? Whether you're using the Quran, doesn't matter. What I'm basically saying is, go ahead.
No, go ahead and finish. I got a question. It's somewhat off topic, but it has to do with the topic because somebody brought up another former. I don't know if he was a billionaire. They said he was, but I don't know if he was. Was it Reginald Lewis?
Reginald Lewis is dead, but he was technically the first billionaire. But we can talk about Reginald Lewis because I know his story pretty good. I know his story pretty good. That word perish doesn't mean you die. It has, if you look on the underlying word under, it doesn't mean die. What it really means, it means to be cut off. Okay, so I'll illustrate with an example because I think examples help people to wrap their minds around what this really means. So the people they're talking about is you. When you do not have any vision, you will perish. What does that mean to you? Don't think people, think you, because people is you individually. Think me. If I have no vision, I'm going to perish. What does that mean? The word perish there means cut off. the underlying Hebrew word means to be cut off, to be, in other words, to be prevented from accomplishing. So I'm going to use an example. Dinesh, you live in Georgia, or you're in Georgia now, right?
I'm in Atlanta. Yes, sir.
You're in Atlanta. I'm up in New York. If I want to go to Miami, which interstate do I take? I take 95 and drive all the way to Miami, correct?
From Atlanta, you have to take probably like 85 south.
From Atlanta, you take 85.
Yeah.
From New York, I take I-95 all the way south, correct?
Oh, okay.
Okay. How many exits are on the road between how many exits are on 85 south?
A ton.
A ton of exits. But if your destination is in Atlanta, sorry, is in Miami.
Right.
Is the exit on exit 10 going towards New Orleans the right exit for you?
No.
Exactly.
That's in the freeway. It's wrong exit.
What? But why is it a wrong exit?
Because I'm headed
why
to Miami.
Is it wrong?
I'm headed to Miami. Not New
Bingo.
Orleans.
So exactly. So it's the destination that tells you that that exit is not good for you. In other words, where you're going, where you want to arrive, that is the thing that determines if you get off. So if I'm leaving New York and driving I-95, there's lots of exits for all the way from here all the way to Atlanta, to Georgia, right? South Carolina. There are all these exits. But if my destination is Miami, then none of those exits are good for me. None of those exits, because if I take those exits and I refuse to get back on the highway and drive south, I will never reach my destination. Right. In other words, I get cut off from where I need to go. In other words, what I'm getting at is when you have a clear destination, that destination or that objective is what drives your decisions. It what says, you can do this or you can't. Right. So my intention is to go to Florida, getting off at, getting off over Jersey and taking I-80 going to California is not going to help me.
No.
It's going to prevent me and cut me off from going to Florida.
Right.
Exactly. So the problem is most people don't have a destination. So when you don't have a destination, every exit seems the same. Every exit has equal value. And you can't have that when you're trying to be successful in business. You have to have a crystal clear idea of what you want. And to go back to that biblical expression, what it really is saying, translated properly, is when you do not have the capacity or the ability to see what the end result should look like, you will not have the fight or the stick-to-itiveness to get there. Because as obstacles come, you're going to run off. You're going to forget it. You're going to move on. And there are people right now listening to this conversation who had dreams, they wanted to write a book, they wanted to start a company, they wanted to have their own jobs, but because they did not have a clear destination of what they wanted, the cares of life comes in and tear them up.
Right.
So that's one of the things, you must have a clear vision, because without a clear vision, any exit will take you there. Where? Anywhere. So you can't have that. It's not doable. So you need a clear vision. So that is why you see Dinesh. If you think of some of your friends when you were younger, somebody who said, I wanted to be a doctor at a very early age, and that's all they wanted to be. You know what? 9 times out of 10, they end up being a doctor because they knew clearly what they wanted to do, and they know, okay, I have to do these things to get there. Or I want to be a lawyer, or whatever the case may be. People who know what they want tend to achieve it at a much faster rate and at a much higher rate than everybody else. If you're in college, if you spend 12 years in college, not sure what you want, that means you certainly didn't know what you wanted. Now, at some point, at any point in life, you can pick a point and say, that's my goal. And that becomes the thing you go and you fight like hell for. So when life kicks your butt, or when somebody says you don't, or somebody says you don't have the amount of money to do this or whatever else, right? Or you need to quit that job and go do this thing that is on that you've been dreaming of the whole time, right? When I walked away from the company, I walked away from a job that most people, if they were going to get that salary, they'd have said, okay, I'm set here for life. I'll go take my vacations, I buy me a nice little car, and I do a bunch of other things, right? Zuckerberg, when they offered him 3, 7, 15, and $21 billion for Facebook, he refused them all. And people called him a pighead. They call him who does he think he is? And what they failed to realize was they were evaluating.
Didn't Google offer offer Yahoo to buy?
Yahoo. So yes, Google offered themselves to Yahoo for $1 million.
And Yahoo said no.
Yahoo said yes, we're a search engine. Life is littered with things like that.
Right.
Because they didn't understand. So with Zuckerberg, he told them no, and they were livid. All these business executives were livid, like, who's this little punk? But what they failed to understand is Zuckerberg was seeing the Miami. He was seeing Facebook at this monster-sized thing. So when they offered him $20 billion, he's saying to himself, these guys know that at some point I'm going to be worth 60, 50, 70 billion. Your measly 15, $20 billion is not going to do me anything. Because his perspective was different from everybody else's perspective.
Right.
Okay? It's your perspective. It's when you can see that destination. So when those guys were offering him the billions, they were trying to cut him off from where he is today, or Facebook from where it is today.
Right.
Right? Those were the exits, like we're talking about on 95 or on 85. You take exit 10 and go to Louisiana or Alabama or some other place, right? Those are the exits. But he was focused on where he was going. His Miami was this social media giant that you have today. That's what he saw. And therefore, no matter what they said to him in terms of numbers, he was going to refuse it. Because the thing that was guiding him was crystal clear in his mind. They may not have known it, but in his mind, it was clear. That's why that vision thing is extremely powerful. Because you couple that with the fight, and you have about 90% of what you need to make that happen. 95% roughly. Mm-hmm. Okay? So those two ingredients cannot be overstated. What's the next ingredient?
This number 3 or this part?
Number three.
Okay.
Number 3. So the next ingredient is knowledge. When you start out in anything, I'm going to be charitable and say, you're pretty dumb in terms of that space. You may be a genius otherwise, but in terms of the thing you want to accomplish. The first day I sat in front of an airplane, I sat behind the control wheel of an airplane. I saw myself as a pilot. But if the pilot got out of the plane that day and left me in there, I would not be here talking to you. I'd be a dead man.
Right.
If he got out of the plane that day and left me in that plane by myself, I would be a dead man because I did not know. In my head, on paper, academically, I kind of knew how to fly the plane. But I had no idea how to flare a plane and how to land a plane from my experience perspective. So one thing I was willing to do, I was willing to learn. I knew that in order for me to go land this thing, take this thing off, fly it and land it, I am going to have to educate myself. Right. And one of the things any business person will tell you is they have learned so much along the way. Be prepared. You're in college. It's going to be the longest, most enjoyable, most difficult. You pile every adjective you want to throw in there. Part of your life. I look back to where we were a couple of years back and know where we are today as a company. And there were times when, we were learning so much. We made mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to spend money when you shouldn't spend money. You're going to not spend money when you should have spent money. There's just so much to learn. But you have to be two things. You have to be forgiving of yourself, because if, in other words, you know you're going to screw up. So you have to be humble. Business people are humble people because they know how hard it is to get to point A from point B. They know that, even if you do things 100%, stuff still come against you. So you have to be willing to learn. A good chunk of business is, learning what not to do because you've done it before. That's why, Dynast, I mentioned before that the people, the story with the immigrant and the native, that the people went down there, the natives went down there and got bitten by the lions so many times. After a while, they stopped going because they said, every time I go down there, they kill it. Or that thing bit me and I could never become, I could never go to school to get the knowledge I need.
Right.
Here comes somebody who's ignorant of that. Sometimes ignorant is bliss, and it's a good thing. That's why I say you could use the same analogy with young and old. When you come into sometimes you don't know better. And sometimes that not knowing better is the best thing ever happened to you, because you give it a shot. You walk down there one more time to see, is there a lion still down here trying to bite me if I'm going across to where I need to go? And you get down there and you look around and there's no lion, and you say, heck, I was expecting a lion, but there's no lion here. And then you walk to school and you realize, wait, there's no lion. And you come back and tell your friends, hey, guess what? There's no lion. And your friend says, get out of here. I went down there 10 times and I got bitten 10 times. And he said, no, come on with me. Let me show you. There's no lions down there. And if they're willing to learn, that's the willing to learn piece. If they're willing to learn, they will say, okay, let me come with you and see if there's really a lion down there or there's no more lions. So even though you were bitten 100 times before or 10 times before, or whatever the case may be, you have to be willing. That fight in you, that 80% of the fight in you is what's going to say, as long as I breathe, as long as I have breath in me, as long as I have a mind and a sound, I am going to try. I'm going to go down there and try again. That's a powerful tool, right? If you ask, David Stewart, or you ask any one of these guys, they'll tell you the nightmares. Just ask them a story. They'll tell you the nightmares. Mm-hmm. Okay, because everybody has a nightmare story. So that's a critical piece of that, right? Okay, so a certain percentage of this is what we call luck, L-U-C-K. L-U-C-K. Some people call it timing. Some people call it luck. Call it whatever you want to call it.
What's that? Now, what is it? Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Bingo. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So, Dynast.
Yes, sir.
When Mark Zuckerberg was in college, depending on who you believe, if you believe the people who said he didn't come up with the idea for Facebook, somebody brought it to him.
Yeah, some people sued him, and that's
it's basically settled. Okay?
It was the Brazilian guy, the two twins. Well, all
twins.
three sued him, but
it was the twins essentially.
Yeah.
But the point is, whoever you believe, the point is that they came to him because he had a skill they didn't have.
Right.
If they could have written the software themselves, they would never have gone to him.
Right.
Now, here is a teenager in college, first year of college, who could program. And so he had that skill set. And if you believe their story, luck would come his way because they could have gone to other people he wasn't the only guy on campus who could write code.
Right.
But luck, turns out that they came to him. And he was able to put the code together. So that's luck. Because they didn't have to come to him. They could have gone to somebody else. But the luck would not have been there if he was not prepared. Remember the preparation piece you talked about?
Right.
If he was not a programmer, it wouldn't have mattered. He would not have even understood what they were saying. So luck itself, the word luck, is the word luck. Say the definition again, Dynast, so that people hear the definition of luck.
Luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Preparation meets opportunity. So if you are sitting here thinking, I'm going to be lucky without preparing, that's idiotic.
Right.
That's not going to go anywhere. You have to be prepared. How are you prepared? What is this preparation you're talking about? Rick, what is this preparation? Well, you need a vision. The vision, the preparation, you need a vision first. Where am I going? If I say to you, Dynast, I'm going to Atlanta.
Right.
Right? I have a meeting in Atlanta. Right? Let's say I didn't know you were in Atlanta. And I said, hey, Dynast, I'm going to go to Atlanta. And you know what? I don't know where I can get a good place to eat lunch. And you say, hey, I know a good place to eat lunch.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that luck? Yes, it is, because I am going to Atlanta. And you just happen to be from there who knows a beautiful place to have lunch.
Right.
So the two come together, and now I can go there and enjoy my lunch. But if I was never going to Atlanta, the knowledge you have about that place in Atlanta where there's good lunch means nothing.
Right.
It has no bearing whatsoever on my life or your life for that matter. So that luck thing that we call luck, or that, time and chance, or, that's a very important piece. The other thing I'm going to throw in here is what we call timing.
Okay.
Timing and luck are slightly different, but they kind of overlap a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Timing. Sometimes you have a brilliant idea, but it's not the right time. And you have to know when something is not the right time. And you don't kill the dream or the idea because it's not the right time. You put it on the shelf and you brush it off every so often. You go there and you brush off the idea and say, look, it's not the right time, but I know it's going to be a right time. And so when the right time comes, it's still fresh in your head. I have ideas that I want to implement, but some of them, the timing isn't right. But I'm not going to throw those ideas away because I can't do them now. I'm going to put them on a shelf, and every so often I'm going to go in there and look and say, is this the time? Is this the time? Is this the time? And if I keep doing that over time, one day I will walk in there and I say, is this the time? And the answer will be, yes, it's the time now. And so I will put it into action. Right? So timing is a powerful tool. So we talk about timing, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about vision, critical, because vision is what, in other words, if somebody see you fighting for something,
right,
why are you fighting for the thing? Vision. I'll let you know a little secret. When I came to the United States, I was 22 years old. I've been to the United States before, but when I came to live, I was 22 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And an interesting thing happened to me on the train. So I used to live in Brooklyn at that time. The first day of my permanent journey in the United States, I took the train to Manhattan. On the train, and if anybody's ever been to Manhattan, they know the trains are crowded and
oh yeah,
everybody's on the train. And I sat there and I looked at the people in the train and I said to myself, oh my God, who are these people? And I try to imagine what these people do for a living. I try to imagine what they do for a living. And I looked at people and I saw some in suits. I saw some in, nice, ladies in business attire. I see some in construction attire. I see some with paint. I see some people look like they're not going anywhere. And I asked myself the question, what is the difference? Ask myself, which one of these people are successful? And because I don't know these people, I have to use some superficial mechanism to figure that out, right?
Right.
I don't know them, so I have to use some superficial. So I looked at the ones in suits and I say, okay, it's a good chance that those people in the suits are probably more successful than the people without suits. I look at the construction person and I said, okay. And again, that construction person could have had their own company and other things like that. I don't know. But I'm talking about superficially. And I said to myself, what's the difference between the successful people and the non-successful people? What is one key difference that they have? And I concluded for myself, I said, knowledge, education. In other words, I said education. One of the little secrets about America that people sometimes, by the way, this is not about America. It's America, Canada, United Kingdom, anywhere in Europe, and frankly, any country in the world, but mostly in these other areas where we find ourselves as diasporans. This is almost like a game. The whole life in these countries is almost like a game. Because in America, to succeed, the formula is written all over the place. You literally, to succeed in America, the formula is written everywhere. The problem is if you're not looking to, if you don't know it's written, you're not going to look to read it. Okay. What I was doing on the train that day was beginning to decipher, how does this economy work? How, I was 22 years old, but I was trying to figure out, how does the economy work? Because some people look like they have their attaché and they look like they're making a fortune, and some look like they're struggling. And I said to myself, I don't want to be like the ones who are struggling. I want to be like the one who, you know, irrespective of where I am right now, ultimately my goal is to be successful, or whatever they call, whatever the society calls successful, I want that. Right? So education was a big factor there. So I said, let me go back to school and get myself a computer science degree. This was a long time ago before computers became computers.
Right.
Because I looked at society and I realized this is an information society. And what runs information? Computers. So if I put myself in a fast moving stream, it doesn't matter if I have a slow boat. The stream will push me along with everything else.
Right.
So that willing to learn, that part of that is education. And people say, well, okay, they give, our kids are in school and they don't teach them this and they don't teach them that. Dynast, if you come from the South, it's a good chance you know people who are successful, who have not even a full high school education. There are an awful lot of people. What is the vehicle? What line of business is the most successful and make people the wealthiest in America? When I say wealthiest, in mass.
Real estate.
Absolutely. Real estate. Do you need a PhD to do real estate?
I need a who?
Do you need a PhD to do real estate?
I need a license. As long as you
Exactly. You don't even need a license. When I bought my first property, I was a young person. You don't even you can go buy anything you want. The one thing about America, you can buy anything you want. Somebody's willing to sell you. Just, as long as it's legal. You can buy darn near anything you want. In other words, you have to see yourself as an owner of 6, 7, 10, 20 properties or whatever the case may be. But at least one property. You have to see yourself with that. In other words, if you can't see yourself with that, you're not going to, one, educate yourself on how do I get there. One of the things in the conversation that came up when they were talking about immigrants, Dynast, was how do immigrants start business?
Susu.
That thing called Susu is responsible for more houses bought.
More houses. Oh yeah, go ahead. Okay.
That thing, my father-in-law bought a couple of properties. How do you think he bought those?
Through Susu.
Yes. What kind of education did he have?
He probably didn't have one.
I think maximum 9th grade.
Okay.
Right? Or 8th grade, something like that. There is a misnomer here. So intelligence and education are not the same. Education and intelligence are not the same. I know lots of educated people who can't feed themselves. I should say lots. I do know some. Education and intelligence. Intelligence is the ability to visualize something and then figure out how to act on it and then act on it. That's intelligence. There are multimillionaires right now in America who have a high school education. and that's all they have.
Yeah.
Do you know? Do you know in New York, you see those junkyards
Yeah.
where they have the cars? Almost all those people are multimillionaires. Those junkyards you see with the cars and the scrap and everything like that.
Yeah.
Almost all those people are multimillionaires. They have more wealth than people driving Beamers and Lexuses and stuff like that.
Right.
Right. What I'm getting at is intelligence is not the same as education. You can be 100% intelligent and have very little education, but you can understand business concepts. You may not know the definition of it. You may not be able to, elaborate it in a very sophisticated way, but you do know the basics of economics and you understand it to a great degree, and therefore you can execute. Right? So intelligence is not the same as education. When you go to school, you get education. You don't get intelligence. Okay? You don't get intelligence. You get education. Okay? Education says, in fact, they teach you to become a factory worker.
Right.
Or an office worker. They don't teach you to go master the rudimentary of business. Okay? So you have to be aware of that. It's something that all of us have to be aware of. Education doesn't do that for you. All education does is it says, all education, and I'm going to make a distinction here. Yeah. There are professional education, like a doctor. That's right. A profession. That's like plumbing. A doctor is like a plumber, only a plumber for the body. Right? Plumbing, a plumber will make more money than the person who graduated from college. If that's all they do. If that's all the college person does. Right? A plumber will make more money. A plumber sets their own time. A plumber sets their own rate. A plumber can grow their business. And a plumber, if they have a child who is good in the business, can pass the business on. Right. Okay? There's good money to be made in that. That's why I'm saying to you, those junkyard people, the people who most of them are multimillionaires. Okay? And they don't drive flashy cars. They don't drive, Beamers or anything like that. They wear shirts like this, plaid shirts. Yeah. And they look like they're always messy. But in their bank account, it's, sitting on. Now, who will enjoy life? Their kids. Oh, yeah. Their kids will enjoy life because there's the money there, right? At some point, somebody's going to have to spend it. But coming back to business, right? Education is important. But don't mix it up with intelligence. You need intelligence is something is your ability to look at a thing and analyze it. And the final thing I'm going to throw in here to round out all of this is it really is part of what we discussed before, but it really should be treated as a separate thing. Okay. I'm going to use the word delayed gratification.
I suffer from that. I suffer. Like I suffer.
And funny enough, delayed gratification you can learn to master it. Right. Yeah, absolutely. You can learn to master it. So just so, I know you have an educated audience, so I'm going to kind of explain what delayed gratification is. I know they know, but for those who don't or might be confused, or maybe English is not their first language.
I'll give you an example. Go ahead. So when I was at my former job, Centos, in fact, I'm writing about this right now. My I hit my quarterly bonus. So when we sell a certain amount, we get we go to a certain tier, we get a bonus, a quarterly bonus. So I get my quarterly bonus. So the first thing I notice is like almost half of it is gone.
Taxes.
Exactly. I had no clue. So I called my boss. I'm like, you guys basically threatened, accusing the company of stealing my money. He said, calm down. It's taxes. I was like, oh, okay, I'm sorry. So then I asked him, I said, what should I do with my money? He said, save your money, buy real estate. I went out and bought a Porsche.
So you did the thing that most people do.
Delayed gratification. is like yeah, that's my problem.
So Dennis, let me talk about that in a second. And use the example you just talked about there, because an awful lot of people are in that same boat. I told you what kind of car I drive. It's a simple little car, right?
Yeah.
Because a car is not part of my. It has no bearing whatsoever to me.
Yeah, I like certain. It's weird, like certain like cars.
No, I get it. Everybody has. Listen,
statues, like I love that stuff, but I don't. There's certain things like I don't need to go to the mall.
Everybody has their. Everybody has their.
Yeah.
Everybody has their. Listen, I have mine. All right. It's just that it's a very expensive toy that I can't afford right now. I have to go make that money first. So whether I want to or not, I'm going to have to wait. But to come back to what you just said there, the example you just gave, delayed gratification. The way you cure delayed gratification is by having a clear vision of what the end result should look like.
Right.
Because if you said to yourself, if your goal was at the age of 40, I am going to be retired and there is nobody's going to tell me I'm not going to retire.
Right.
Okay. I'm going to be retired and I'm going to be self-sufficient. If I'm just throwing that out as an example, let's say that was your goal. That goal would then trigger certain ideas in your head. Right. How do I get there?
Exactly.
When I retire, how am I going to get revenue from sources?
See, I was on that. My mentality was fake it till you make it.
Say again?
My mentality was fake it till you make it.
Well, fake it till you make it is misunderstood. Right, but fake it till you make it is misunderstood. Let me write it down here because we need to address that as well. Fake it till you, and remind me if I don't cover this, we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Because I hear people use it a lot, and 9 times out of 10 they use it incorrectly, or at least the way they're using it is not going to help them. Okay, it's not going to help them.
Shout out to Fitzgerald Stevens. So before I bought the Porsche, like my second Porsche, I called my mentor, my brother Fitzgerald Stevens, said, "Hey, I'm about to buy this Porsche. Should I?" He said, "No." I bought it anyway. But shout out to Fitzgerald Stevens in the chat room. All right, go ahead.
So let's use the example that you just gave there. And I said you can cure that. The cure for that is really your destination. So if your goal was to retire at the age of 40, your mind would be saying, okay, how much money am I going to need at the age of 40 every year for the rest of my life? I'm going to live up to 70, 80, another 40 years. Okay? It is I'm going to call it the NBA curse. You know what the NBA curse is?
People blowing their money, and the NBA athletes, professional athletes in the NBA blowing their money. Yes, because they don't understand the fundamental laws of money. So you take an athlete who's going to play until he's about 32, 33. Right. He's making $15 million a year. Right? And that's a really successful NBA player. Most of them don't make that kind of money. But let's assume this one is making $15 million a year. Okay? So he's going to make that money from the age of, say, 25 to 35, 10 years. So in that 10-year span, he's going to make, because before that, he's proven himself. Just hold on. No, go ahead and continue. Go ahead and continue.
So before that, he's proven himself. So he's not going to make that kind of money. But he's making 15 million a year. This is a really successful athlete. This is not like any average NBA player. This is like one of the top players. He's making 15 million a year for 10 years. So that's, if you add up that money, it's 150 million over 10 years. Okay. How much money is he really making per year? To the audience out there, how much money is this guy really making per year? I'll tell you. He's making about 4 million a year. You said, well, what do you mean he's making 4 million a year? He's got a $15 million contract. Well, let me put it to you this way. you take the 150 million and you divide that by, I'm assuming that athlete is going to live from the age of 25 to 85. That's 60 years. So you take the 60 years that that athlete is going to live, and you take that 150 million and you divide that by that, and what do you get? It's almost $3 million. If he or she expects to live to be 80, and is, because remember, a portion of that goes to taxes. On paper, prorated for the full life of the person, they're only making $2-3 million. So when that person goes out and buys a home as if he's making $15 million, he's buying a home he can't afford with all that money coming to him because he hasn't prorated the thing. So when they tell these athletes that they're making this kind of money, they have no idea. So I call it the NBA curse because it's a simple formula that they could sit down and teach these guys, and it would eliminate half the headache they have because they really believe they're making $15 million a year. You're not making $15 million a year. Half of that goes to taxes, and then you take the other $7.5 million and prorate it over the 70 million and prorate it over the 60 years, and you come down to what, 1.9 million, 1.8 million, or whatever the number is. That's how much money you're making. And from that money, you have to buy a house, you have to save for the future, you have to do all of that stuff, right? So how much is your actual spending money from the 15 million that we're talking about? You quickly see that that money is a very different number than what they perceive. And that's why they overspend, because nobody's ever sat them down and say, that's how you do the math, right? And so they overspend. So to come back to what Dennis was talking about, where he goes out and he buys the Porsche. If your goal was to say, I'm going to retire at 40, you're going to say, I'm going to need a certain amount of income every year for the rest of my life. Which means that the money you got for the Porsche, you realize that has to go into some fund, some brokerage account or whatever it is that's going to give me a certain rate of return, maybe 4, 5, 6%. And because you're young, you can afford you can go into aggressive funds where you can, try to get 7, 8, 9%, right? You realize you can't spend that money because the goal of retiring by 40 is going to force you to not do that. That's how you control what we call delayed gratification, because you are saying to yourself, the dream of retiring early is more important than that Porsche. The dream of retiring early is more important than that Porsche. You will spend your money and your time and your soul on the thing that's most important to you. The thing that's most important to you, you will spend your treasure on it. You'll spend your time. If looking good to your friends is your highest priority, you're going to buy the Porsche or you're going to buy the Benz. That's why when rappers get the first money, they go buy themselves, a Maybach or, Bentley or some of the car they really technically can't afford. Right? Because nobody has sat them down and said, the real goal is, self-sufficiency or investments. Because if you invest that money, buying a Bentley down the road is going to be nothing. And here's the thing. The other thing that kind of gets people in terms of delayed gratification. So a lot of people will say, they're 40 years old and they always want to be a doctor, for example. And they say, I'm not going to go back to school because it's going to take me 10 years. It's going to take you 10 years, they say. Therefore, or I'm not going to start a company because I'm on my job, I'm close to my retirement. I'm not going to mess up my retirement. So your retirement is the most important thing to you. And guess what? If it's the most important thing to you, you're going to protect it. Right, Dennis? If your retirement is the most important thing to you, you're going to protect it. It doesn't matter how lucrative the business or the idea you have is. If retirement is bigger than it, retirement is going to win. There are people right now at the age of 40, 50 who have great ideas that if they were to step out and do it, those ideas would make them a fortune, and their little retirement they're getting from their job would be nothing. But they're not going to do it because they believe, because the higher priority to them is security. 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 It's that quote unquote security. So let's go back to the doctor. So the person says, I'm not going to become a doctor because it's going to take me 10 years. It's going to take me 7 years in medical school and 3 years in residency. And who have time for that? I'm going to be older. Well, I have a question for you. Do you plan to die at 55? If you're 40, do you plan to die at 50? Or are you planning to jump off a bridge at 50?
No.
Well, if you don't plan to, that means you plan to live beyond 50. So right. The time you use between now and 50 is going to determine the life you have after 50. Because 50 is coming. Either you die or you get to 50.
Right.
Make no mistake about it. You either die or you get to 50. And when you get to 50, guess what? You see that prior 10 years? You can't get it back. Ain't a damn thing you can do about the prior 10 years. You can't get it back. It's gone. And if you invested it, you would be reaping going forward. You would be a doctor at the age of 50. I'm choosing these extreme numbers so that people understand because
Mr. Brown, I was going to say we have about 3 more minutes.
Okay.
And then we're
getting there. We're almost
and everybody, I want to make this announcement too. There are going to be some changes to this platform coming up in the next week or so. There's a lot of valuable content on here that I'm undervaluing myself. So basically, I'm setting up and I'm working on it a subscription-based site where a lot of these valuable conversations are going over there, and you're going to pay at the minimum a certain price a month. I'm just letting you guys know now. Now, as far as all the African content, me on the continent, traveling to the continent, some content will still stay on here, but a lot of conversations like this, I mean, people will charge you literally $500 to $1,000 for at a conference. So again, a lot of these conversations, guys, a lot of this content, I'm going to remove from here. And I'm going to set up, I'm working on it in the next week or so, the next couple of weeks at the most. A lot of this content, how to travel to Africa, buy land, all that's going to be removed from here. Conversations like with Mr. Brown, and it's going over there. So just to let you guys,
It's reasonable, Dynast. Honest, the truth is that information, knowledge is power, and it's not free. Right. You asked me about my story, and I said to you, it cost me dearly to get the knowledge I have. It didn't just appear overnight. It cost me dearly, and the effort and energy you put into coming up with these programs are, it needs to be rewarded. Right. So rewinding down here, guys. But what I'm getting at here is that delayed gratification is something that the community lacks, and we need to change that because almost every successful thing in life requires you to fight for it. It's not going to come easy, which means you have to wait for it. Okay. There are lots of things I would love to go out and do, right, with the money I have, but I can't. It's all spoken for. My nephew and a nephew of mine asked me one time. He came with an iPhone, and I said, I can't afford an iPhone. And he started laughing like, what do you mean you can't afford an iPhone? I said, because he said, no, you got money, you can afford an iPhone. I said, no, I can't. I said, because you don't understand. My money's spoken for. You think, because you have no long-term goal for your money, you think you have the money. Frankly, I need money. Okay? We all need money. To expand the business, you need money. So the reality is that that's critical. So to cure that, lack of delayed gratification, you need, it's because we lack the clarity in terms of the vision. What is it that we're fighting for? Because if that thing is more important, if that's the most important thing to you, if I had said to you, Dennis, that I didn't want my daughter to write a resume, send a resume, but to read them. Remember I said that at some point in one of the conversations?
Right.
It meant that I had to go and fight like hell to make that happen. Okay? It wasn't going to happen by me just making a statement, right? And the other thing I'm going to talk about is real quick thing is fake it till you make it.
Go ahead.
And we will end with this one. Fake it till you make it. What is fake it till you make it? I know, guys, I know what it means, but it's not. But it's misapplied in so many cases.
I would say fake it till make it is project this image of wealth and success. What we I guess, deem or claim to be wealth or success, but it's all on a credit card.
That's the worst version of fake it till you make it. That's the
But
worst.
that's fake it till you make it.
That's the deadly version. There are different versions of it. That's the most deadly version.
That's the
The other version is like as I mentioned to you, people get money and they go out and buy themselves a Bentley. No, they have the money. They spend the money on that Bentley. That's the fake it version because technically speaking, they can't afford a car, but they don't know that. Okay, so but they want to project success. Guys, to properly use the word fake it till you make it, here's the basic conditions that have to be. So you are trying to achieve a specific goal. In order to get somebody to help you, somebody who you are looking at or speaking to, or someone who you want to come over to help you, you've put everything in place. You've put all your business ideas and stuff, all that thing in place. Okay? And then, you know who did that? There's a Jamaican guy by the name of Michael Leachin. He's worth about $2 billion today. He actually rented he was a I'm not gonna say a stockbroker, but he was kind of like a stockbroker. But he was like a broker. And he actually rented a Rolls Royce and went to his first client. And the client said, "My God, man, if you're driving a Rolls Royce, you must be doing something right." But the difference with him is, first of all, he didn't buy the Rolls Royce. That's the first thing. But secondly, he had all the business pieces in place. All he wanted was the money, and he needed a way to convince the guy to give him, I think it was like $5 million to invest in the fund that he was running. But he did all the underlying homework. It's the underlying, in other words, it was the goal of him to get this fund off the ground and get this fund doing well. That caused him to say, hey, as part of my sales initiative, I need to show up with a certain atmosphere. That's the fake it piece. Oops, sorry. That's the fake it piece, right? So that's where I'm saying people misunderstand it. You know, driving around in a car that you can't pay for with no goal in mind, that's not faking it. That's being stupid.
Right. Sure.
That's just being plain old stupid.
Right.
Fake it till you make it means you have all the underlying things in place. And you need to do one or two actions to get somebody to act on your behalf. And when they act, it will generate whatever it needs to generate. Business, more revenue, whatever the case may be. That's what true fake it till you make it is. Okay? That is what it is. So people don't misunderstand it and go, and go buy yourself a Lamborghini or a Lexus, that you can't afford. If you can't afford it, you can't afford it. Take the money, go to school, go back to school, or start a business. Start small. Start in your garage. Start anywhere, but start, right? And fight like hell. Be willing to fight like hell. 80% of this is going to be you fighting for what you want. When life throws all the hell at you, when your family says you can't do it, we've never seen anybody in our family do it, it's that fight in you that's going to say, okay, I will be the first, right? I will be the first. And you fight like hell until, right? Remember, 80% of what you need is there. And please don't tell me that the system and the man stop you, because the system and the man is always, that's like the lion down the street. The system and the man is the lion down the street. But at some point, if enough of you come, the lion can't eat everybody. It's like a cop on the highway, a trooper on the highway. If 1,000 people are speeding, he can't stop everybody. Some are going to escape, and one or two will get pulled over. Be one of those people who don't get pulled over, But even if you get pulled over, your friends and family might not get pulled over, so they can, make it for you. All right? But you can't say, you know what, because the line is out there, because the trooper's out there, I'm going to be late for my appointment, or I'm going to be late for my meeting, or I'm going to be late for my interview, or whatever the case may be. You have to get there. You have to do what you have to do. So those are things that I've learned over the years. Those are experiences that I'm still learning, right? If you're a business person, you have to be humble. You don't have a choice, because so many things you require you to help other people or have people to come in and assist you. So you have to be humble. You don't have a choice in the matter. And that humbleness, and that, just because I'm humble doesn't mean I'm not going to fight for my thing. But I'm also willing to learn. I'm willing to learn that people will come in who have knowledge, who have the information that I've been struggling with. They have that knowledge. I'm going to have to find that person or persons and have them assist me in getting to my goal. And then once I get to my goal, I turn around or even before I get there, I turn around and I reach back and I try to help people to get there. Okay? Because you don't want to get to the top of the mountain and you're the only one up there enjoying the view. You want to have people around you to say, hey man, look, isn't that awesome, that view? So, Dynast, people make money in the biggest money made in technology comes not from buying the stock. It comes from pre-IPO. For those of you who don't know what it is, Google what an IPO is. But companies who, such as my company and other technology companies, we all have to raise money and to build out the business or to scale out the business. And when you do that, you offer people come in, investors with money come in, and they give you a certain amount of dollars for a certain percentage of the company. And then eventually the company gets big and you go for IPO, and their $1 million investment or their $500,000 investment or their $100,000 investment or their $10,000 investment. Don't think you always have to have $1 million. Sometimes $10,000. If you knew that Zuckerberg was going to be this rich, you could have gone to him and said, hey, Zuck, I'll give you $10,000 for 1% of your company. And he probably would have taken it. And today that would be worth what? Almost 40 billion.
Yeah.
So that money up front, we unfortunately, most of the time, we are not privy to it because that money, the pre-IPO, we never hear of these companies until we hear them of IPO or they're about to go IPO. And so from an investor perspective, that's how serious money is made in technology. I threw that in as a little conversation because we started off with these tech billionaires. Mm-hmm. How did they get rich? How did they become big? Right? And I will leave you with one final thing.
Go ahead. We got 2 minutes.
Carrot bars.
Yeah, go ahead.
Carrot bars. We're going to talk about carrot bars a second.
Go ahead.
So Dynast has this initiative called Carrot Bars.
Yes.
Put the URL, Dynast, if you can, inside of here.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Carrot Bars is an initiative where you can buy gold, and you can turn around and help other people to buy gold and protect yourself. Most people in this country don't have $5,000 in the bank. Question to you: do you have $5,000 in the bank? If you needed $5,000 right now, could you come up with $5,000 in the bank?
I could. I wouldn't want to, but I could. I wouldn't want to, but I could.
All right. And if you couldn't come up with it,
what would you do?
What would you do?
I would have to liquidate some stuff.
You have to liquidate things. Okay.
Which I
asked that question. I asked that question because investment is a delayed gratification thing. You see, each one of those little bars that he showed, if you started to accumulate them right now, and you every single let's say every second paycheck you buy one of those, and you do that and forget about it. Just put it in a safe and forget about it. By the time you reach retirement age, let's say you're 40 today. By the time you reach retirement age, because remember it's gold, and gold appreciates over time, a long period of time, you would have accumulated a nice little nest egg. And most of the time, the money that you're going to use to do something like that, you'd blow it anyway. It takes discipline. It takes discipline. Okay? What I'm saying to you is give it a shot. It takes discipline. There's so many people with excuses as to why they're not successful. And it's everybody else's reason why. My father didn't give me this. My mom didn't give me this. I didn't get this education. I didn't get that education. But now you know of something. If you went out there and decided, granted, there's no ways to buy gold. You could buy a whole bloody gold bullion, but that's going to cost you $500,000. You don't have that. So since you can't afford that, you can afford, a gram or two, right? And this is one way to do it. Why am I saying this? I'm saying this because this is something you can do without it affecting your life significantly. Am I right, Dynast?
Right.
Just put away a few dollars. You'd be surprised. The other day I cashed in an insurance policy for my daughter that I had. I'd forgotten I had a bloody policy, and I was shocked at the value that was in there. But I'd forgotten about it. But I put a tiny amount in there every single month. That's all I did. I didn't do that much. What I'm getting at is, guys, is that delayed gratification we talked about. Take your, take a few dollars that you spend elsewhere and apply it to something like this.
Okay.
Right?
Thank you.
Do it, because in the end, right, you're going to see the result. Right? Excuses. We don't want to hear it. Okay? Don't give me excuses. I don't want to hear it, because the truth be told is I have my own problem. All right? When I talk to people, Dennis, I always say, I don't want to hear your problem because I have enough of mine.
Come on.
Right? And I don't tell people my problem. No matter what I have, I don't tell people, because frankly, they have their own problem. Why do I have to go burden them with mine? So with that said, guys, to be successful in business, if you have all the criteria that we talked about earlier, you will be successful in business. You'll be successful in writing a book. And Dennis, I'm gonna make one little plug. These two books, Rafe and Rose, this is my daughter's book. She wrote this when she was 19, right? It's a 4-book series, right? And then this is the latest version of the book, Rafe and Rose. You can get this, by the way, on Amazon.
Right.
When she started to write this book, I said, you can do it. Don't tell me you're a teenager. It's tough. You can do it. And 2 books later, I was right. She could do it. You can do it. Each of you can do it. You can start with carrot bars right now.
Right.
Okay. That's it, Linus. Thank you so much for your platform. And
problem.
I hope everybody got something from this. I did.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Carrot Bar's link is in the chat room. Also, will be on the screen and in the description. Click on the link. Sign up as an affiliate. I will personally call you and then get you in contact with Fitzgerald. We will ensure that you're successful. Like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, family. Dynasty Mirror, search for Huru. Peace.